Hello everyone, welcome to Maths Help. Today we will be going through solving quadratics by factorization. So before I go into the method of factorization, let's understand what the three main methods are for solving a quadratic. So to solve a quadratic, there are three main methods. Do excuse any kind of spelling mistakes. Let's just focus on the method. So the first method is by factorization. Second method is through quadratic formula. And the third method is completing the square. So there are these three different methods which can be used to solve any kind of quadratic equations. But what do we mean by quadratic equations? Quadratic equation is anything in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So for an example, it could be something like x squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, or it could be something along the lines of 3x squared plus 4x plus 1 is equal to 0. So anything in those forms can be a quadratic equation. So in this video, we will be focusing on just factorization, and there will be other videos based on quadratic formula and completing the square. So let's get started. Factorization. So for this method, I'm making a big assumption that all of you already know how to factorize. And if you don't know how to factorize, that's perfectly fine. But feel free to just watch the video on factorization before continuing with this video. So let's get started with this method. So if I'm trying to solve something along the lines of x squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, of course the first step is to factorize. So factorize the quadratic. So in this case, it will be x plus 2 and x plus 1 multiply is equal to 0. So how did I know it was 2 and 1? So I know that by thinking of two numbers that multiply together to give me 2, but adds together to give me 3. Okay, now here's the thing. In this stage, you need to understand a concept, and that concept is about multiplication and gaining zeros. So let's get that. For example, let's say that you have to multiply 3 by 0. What would you get? You would get a 0. If I had to do 0 times 4, what would you get? You would get a 0. And if I had to do 0 times 0, I would also get a 0. So what is special about this case? So what's special about this case is that to get an answer of 0, it means at least one of the terms must be 0. So at least one of the two multiplying numbers needs to be 0. So if you look at the scenario we have here, x plus 2 is multiplying x plus 1 to give you 0, which means either x plus 2 is equal to 0 or x plus 1 is equal to 0. So that's where this fact is being used. This fact is used to make two different equations. So that's the second step. Make two separate equations. And finally, the last step is solve these equations. So in this case, it will be minus 2 on both sides, and I'm left with x equal to minus 2, and in this case, minus 1 on both sides, so I'm left with x equal to minus 1. So for this quadratic, so for the quadratic that is this, x is equal to minus 2 or minus 1. So we have solved this quadratic. So that's it, simple step. Yep, so let's quickly summarize the step again. Let me write down the final step. Solve the equation. So let's summarize the three main steps. First step, factorize the quadratic, get two distinctive brackets, then separate the brackets, into two separate equations, and third, solve the equations to get an answer. So that's it for solving by factorization. So this question can get harder by making the quadratic harder. So the way they could make it harder, so let's see. So let me give you an example of when the question can get harder. So for example, when a number is added in front of the x squared, the factorization becomes a bit more harder. For example, 2x squared plus 7x plus 1 is equal to 0. Oh, sorry, not 1. 3 is equal to 0. So this is a quadratic that is a bit more harder to solve than the one we had before, because there is a number in front of the x squared. So in this case, I would factorize into 2x plus 1 and x plus 3 is equal to 0. Then I would separate the equations into 2x plus 1 equal to 0 or x plus 3 is equal to 0. And that would be minus 1 minus 1, 2x is equal to minus 1, then x is equal to minus 1 over 2. On the side here, minus 3, and x is equal to minus 3. So there's a couple of things I would suggest you do while you're practicing this question, but you might not need to do while you're doing the actual test. So while you're practicing this test, always make sure to double check your answers. For example, is this the right factorization? And one of the ways in you can do this is by doing the bots method. So it is something along the lines of a bots, quite a creative name, but you have a bots and you have the two different brackets and you just fill it out. So this one goes like this. I'm just using the arrows to help you visualize it, but you don't really need the arrows. So that is 2x squared, and that would be x, and this 6x, and finally this one, that would be plus 3. So it simplifies to give you 2x squared plus 7x plus 3. So that is exactly the same as the quadratic we need. So we have factorized it right. And of course, something like this, you don't really need to do in a real test because you can kind of do it in your head, but I did it in practice just to make sure the chances of mistakes are as low as possible. So always do the maximum amount of working out when you practice, which you can choose to miss in your real thing. This will reduce the amount of mistakes you have by a lot. So that's it for the topic. So if you want to practice more questions, I can suggest some websites in the description. So please let me know in the comment section if you want more practice questions. And if you have any questions at all, please let me know. I'll reply as soon as I can in the comment section. Since this is the first video, I didn't really want to start an educational video by giving a big backstory about me. So if if you're done, if you fully understand what you're supposed to learn and you don't want to learn any more things, I think you can just leave the videos over. But just to give an introduction of this channel, um, so I'm starting this channel just because I felt like it's good to have these videos for quick use for GCSE students or KS3 students. So currently I'm a tutor. I teach up to GCSEs just because A levels takes a bit more work for me, so I stopped at GCSEs. Um, and if you have any topics you want to go through, just let me know in the comment section, and I will go through in the future. But for the current schedule, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put out one video per week. But it might be more videos in the beginning just to make sure there's some content in the channel and people like the channel. But in the future, it will probably be one or two videos per week, but only if, of course, it gets support. So make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Yep, so that's it for today. And like I said, any questions, comment below, I answer. So have a great day, everybody. See you soon.